What's going on, wrestling fans? Thank you for tuning in to the third edition of Renegade Wrestling Review. I am your host, Gina J. We have had a really long week behind us, coming off of Wrestlemania week, so we have a lot to cover. We're going to go through. I'm going to spare you the details on NXT TakeOver, Impact versus Lucha, and Wrestlemania, just simply because I want to concentrate on what happened on the Raw after Mania, the Smackdown after Mania, as well as 205 Live, NXT, and some current news. We've had a lot of breaking news coming out this week for the WWE. So I'm pretty sure that you all know exactly what happened at NXT TakeOver. That was phenomenal, as well as WrestleMania, and as I said, Lucha Underground. Everybody already knows what happens there, so I'm not going to rehash all of that. So let's dive right into the Raw after WrestleMania. I actually really enjoyed this Raw. I know that there were a lot of people who had some mixed up or negative feelings about WrestleMania, as well as the Raw and SmackDown after WrestleMania. I went into this entire past WrestleMania weekend with a very positive attitude, tried to keep my mind open. And it was kind of amazing what it did for me. It without overthinking everything so much and reading too much into the matches, it let me enjoy the matches a little bit more. WrestleMania, I loved WrestleMania. I would give it probably like a 7.5 out of 10, maybe even an 8. I loved it. I thought it was great, as well as the Raw after Mania, as I just said. As we got started with Raw, we saw Ronda Rousey coming out with Stephanie McMahon. Stephanie McMahon was out there blabbering about how great she is and, just being typical Stephanie McMahon. She calls out Ronda Rousey. She, does the handshake and the hug, thinking that everything's going to be all peachy keen. And then, of course, we see Ronda Rousey turn it on her and put Stephanie in yet another armbar. This was kind of to be expected. I mean, who honestly doesn't want to see Stephanie McMahon in another armbar? I mean, I know that she's a great person in real life. However, her wrestling character, everybody despises Stephanie McMahon. That's how she is supposed to be. So the fans, of course, are going to go nuts for her being put into yet another armbar by Ronda Rousey. So, of course, the crowd loved that. I thought the crowd was pretty great all night long. There were a few spots where they kind of died off a little bit, but that's typical. Next up, we saw Ember Moon debut with Nia Jax. She was in a tag team with Nia Jax against Alexa Bliss and Mickie James. I love the fact that Ember Moon was called up. I think that she's ready. Of course, she's still, NXT talent. She has a long way to go, but if they do it correctly, they can really build her up to become a really powerful superstar. The whole Alexa Bliss and Mickie James gimmick with the whole fat jokes and all that stuff, it's just really starting to get old. I love the fact that they have Nia standing up to them. However, I just really don't see where they're going to go with these two after this, especially Alexa Bliss. I mean, she is the former Raw Women's Champion. So I really don't see where they're going to put her or what they're going to do unless they bring her back over to SmackDown. Even if she goes to SmackDown, however, I really don't understand what they're going to do with her, because I have a feeling that Asuka's going to SmackDown and Asuka's going to, compete with Carmella for the SmackDown Women's Championship. So I don't know. I think that they kind of lost Bliss in this whole situation. And hopefully she'll come back at some point in time, and hopefully her character won't be as nasty as it is now. Moving on, we saw Braun and Nicholas relinquish the titles. I love this segment. I mean, if you take a step back and you think just kind of wide open and you let your mind free and you go into this just as a wrestling fan, not as a critic, as a wrestling fan, it's funny. The segment itself was hilarious. The fact that they picked a 10-year-old kid who we later found out was a son of a WWE referee. But either way around, he's a 10-year-old kid, so we knew that they were going to have to relinquish the titles, or that the titles were going to get taken away from them. That made a lot of fans upset. Understandably so, the Raw Tag Team titles, they should be held at high prestige. However, every once in a while, you have to have some fun. And everybody is sitting there complaining about how they want them to go back to the Attitude Era or the Ruthless Aggression Era, get rid of this PG stuff. Well, newsflash, guys. It's 2018. WWE, in order to keep their best interests in mind, and the fact that there are a lot of children watching, and yes, as us as kids, we watched as well. However, the TV guidelines were not as strict as they are now. So the WWE kind of has to keep it PG. But in the sense, they kind of took us back to the funny parts of the Ruthless Aggression Era with this little bit that they did with Braun and Nicholas. In the sense that it was a funny bit, like what Edge and Christian used to do. I mean, I know that theirs were a lot edgier, but as I said, this is 2018. They have to keep it PG if they want to keep on making money. It's a smart business move. Getting back to the segment itself, when Braun said that they had to relinquish the titles because Nicholas had other obligations, he has to go to school, I was laughing so hard. And I mean, honestly, if you take yourself out of the situation as a critic and you just watch the segment, it's funny. As I keep on saying, it's funny. Especially when Nicholas comes up and, he says Braun's famous line, "Get these hands." It's just cute, and I love them doing that segment. I really enjoyed that. I was not however, too impressed with the next thing that came, which was the debut of No Way Jose. I did not believe that No Way Jose was ready to be called up to main roster talent. That's just my opinion. His conga line and all that stuff, yeah, it's fun. It gets your hips shaking, whatever, but he seems like another version of Adam Rose. And I know that a lot of people out there have been saying that as well. And we all saw what happened to Adam Rose. He was not around for very long. The gimmick gets old. The whole party scene gets old. I don't think that his wrestling moves are quite up to par. I'm hoping that, I'm going to be proven wrong. It wouldn't be the first time that I've been proven wrong. So I really don't know what else to say on that segment other than I was not too impressed. I mean, they bring him out against a jobber. Just not impressed at all. Next up, we had the Bar come out and talk to Kurt Angle. We actually ended up finding out that those two will face the winner of the Tag Team Eliminator Tournament at the Great Royal Rumble. Whose idea was it to name this thing the Tag Team Eliminator Tournament? First of all, because that's just ridiculous. The tournament itself is a great idea, but the Tag Team Eliminator, I was just like, really? But, WWE throws curveballs at us all the time, so not really unexpected. In the first round of that tournament, we saw the Revival defeat Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows. So there will be a second round this week, and then I believe we will find out who the Bar will be facing at the Greatest Royal Rumble. We saw Jeff Hardy return, and he teamed up with Seth Rollins and Finn Balor later on in the evening to defeat the Miz Taraj in a pretty good match. I love what they're doing with Seth Rollins as of late because he's just so fun. His character is so much fun. I think I really like this Rollins better than the serious Rollins. I mean, for criminal's sake, after Raw ended, the three of them were standing in the ring playing beach ball with the crowd. That is awesome. I love it, especially after last year's debacle with Cesaro and the whole beach ball segment and how it was a distraction and blah, 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 blah. But I love the fact that they connected with the fans this year. We saw Mandy Rose defeat Sasha Banks due to Bayley's interference. Bayley claims that it was an accident that she struck Sasha Banks instead of Mandy Rose. However, as we all know, it is not typical Bayley to get involved with a match. These two, I don't know what they're doing with the storyline, to be quite honest, but I'm done with it already. Um, the whole best friends feuding thing has been done before, over and over and over again, and I just don't think that it really does anything to empower this women's wrestling movement that is happening right now. Um, I don't know. I don't agree with that decision at all. But like I said, I'm really sick and tired of this segment already. I'm sick of this feud. Let's just make them fight, get it over with so we can all move on. We saw Paige retire on Monday night, which was a very emotional retirement. You could kind of sense in a way of what would be coming the next night on SmackDown Live. However, you still felt for her. I mean, she was talking about Daniel Bryan and how his in-ring return gave her hope, and it was a really emotional moment. So I really liked that segment. I mean, it was sincere, and I know all of the jokes and everything that's going around about Paige. It was kind of nice to just see her come out with no character, no little Paige here thing or anything like that. She just was herself, and she laid her emotions out on the line right in the middle of the ring. I loved it. We also saw the return of Bobby Lashley, who came out to attack Elias. I believe personally that this is a really good feud to bring him back into. I'm really glad that he's not in the title competition as of yet. I didn't think that would have been a good move, seeing as to how Bobby Lashley left the company, and now he's back. You don't want to put him in that number one contender position for the title right off the bat. So I believe that Elias and a feud with Elias is going to be great for both of them. Elias is so over with the crowd. He has been for a long time. I remember back, I believe it was like October, I went to TLC. It was like October, November, somewhere in there. Went to the TLC pay-per-view up in the cities, and Elias was way over already back then, even prior to that. So this is going to be a really good feud. Kurt Angle took a shot at TNA with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, saying that TNA is hiring. That was, I think the internet broke on that one. Everybody was laughing their asses off on that one. It's kind of hard not to. I mean, knowing the history with Kurt Angle and TNA and a bunch of the other superstars in TNA, and TNA did get their revenge, however, because they posted a post the next day with donuts, and it was something about interviewing somebody or something like that. I can't remember quite what it said, but it was pretty funny too. So these two are definitely taking bashes at each other. It'll be fun to see what happens with that. A lot more debuts going on. We had the debut of AOP, the Authors of Pain, where they left Paul Ellering in the dust. Like, what is happening there? Okay, first of all, I love Authors of Pain. I love them. However, when they were in NXT, they did not speak a word of English. Like, not a word of English. Paul Ellering talked for them whenever they did. It wasn't much, but he did. He was their mouthpiece. And every time that they would go to talk, you couldn't understand them because they weren't speaking English. But all of a sudden, they leave Paul Ellering in the dust. And literally Monday night, after Raw went off the air, they're on Twitter and they're tweeting out perfect English. That it doesn't make sense for the characters to me. I do believe that they did have to go on their own at some point in time. It's just, I don't know. I just feel like they maybe should have just edged them into it a little bit more gently, if that makes sense. Because right now, the whole thing doesn't make sense. They all of a sudden can speak English and, whatever. It is what it is. We also saw Samoa Joe returning. A lot of people were excited about this one. A lot of people. Because Roman was in the middle of the ring with his sad promo, about how he got beat up by Brock Lesnar and the fans hate him and blah, blah, blah. And you felt for the guy. You really did, because he was in the middle of the ring pouring his heart out. He's getting booed. Looked like he was going to cry. I mean, ridiculous. And then here comes Samoa Joe. Everybody fucking loves Samoa Joe. So, Samoa Joe ultimately challenges Roman to a match at Backlash. Here's my question with this. Roman has the match at the Greatest Royal Rumble first against Brock for the title. So if Roman wins that title, does that mean that Samoa Joe gets a shot at the championship? Or is this going to be a non-title shot? If it is a non-title shot, I don't think I'm okay with that. Just simply because it's at Backlash. It's at a pay-per-view. You expect the champion to defend the title. However, if it is a title shot, not really too sure if I'm okay with that either, just simply because Samoa Joe is just coming off of injury. However, I would be much more okay with him getting a title shot just because of his history. I mean, he may be coming off of an injury, but he has a long history in NXT as well as WWE. He's a great competitor. So would I like to see Roman face Samoa Joe for the championship? You bet I would. I believe it might come down to a triple threat. I have a feeling that the WWE is trolling us again. I really do. I think that everybody thinks that Roman's going to win that championship overseas in Saudi Arabia. But there might just be a chance that they're trolling us and it will turn into a triple threat match at Backlash. Right now, Backlash is not impressing me too much. I'm just going to say that right there. They really haven't built many matches for Backlash. Everything's for the Greatest Royal Rumble, which I believe is there's only like a week's time in between the two. So, that's too close. There's not enough time to build anything. I don't know. It's WWE. You know, what do you do? Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt defeated Titus Worldwide. This segment made me break with laughter. I was literally broken, if mind you. When Matt Hardy stops the match in the middle of the match, and he starts with this wonderful, and he's clapping, and Bray is clapping, and they even got Titus Worldwide to clap. Apollo was clapping, which ultimately led to his demise, of course, because Bray Wyatt took advantage of his clapping and being distracted and made them lose the match. However, the whole segment was just, it's funny. I'm really enjoying what's happening with, Woken Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt, and even like Jeff, Brother Nero, came into the picture when we saw them in the back, and they had a pretty funny segment in the back where it ended up, there was some words exchanged between the three of them, and then it ended up with Finn Balor and Seth Rollins asking, what the heck was that? So that one made me laugh pretty good. As far as seeing Brother Nero, I know Jeff Hardy has actually said this past week that we will see Brother Nero on and off. I'm okay with this, simply because I think it's time for the Hardy Boys to separate once again. The Hardy Boys for me was always Jeff Hardy, just simply because Jeff was always the one that did the memorable jumps and the dangerous stunts and all of that. You think the Hardy Boys, you automatically think Jeff Hardy. Broken Matt Hardy is Matt's gimmick. Like, that is his baby. So I would be perfectly fine if they split and Jeff did the Hardy Boys thing and Matt did the broken, now Woken gimmick. I'm okay with that. And it would be great if they would, mesh every once in a while and Jeff would become Brother Nero. I'm not really quite sure how they're going to do that, because from what I understand, Brother Nero was only made Brother Nero because he was thrown into the lake of reincarnation, but I'm not sure how they're going to work that out. But as I said, Jeff Hardy said we will see him every once in a while, but it's not going to be a permanent thing. We had Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens fighting for a job with only one position there. It was a great match, ended in a double countout. I had no doubt that it was going to be great. Anytime that you see these two go up against each other, it's a fantastic match. They're great competitors, and uh, double countout kind of makes sense if you think about it, just simply because they're with the superstar shakeup coming. It makes more sense to do the double countout because what I think is going to happen is I think Kurt is going to say that he was impressed by both of them, and they're both going to get drafted to Raw. Obviously, we know that Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are not fired from the WWE, so they're going to end up in there somewhere. So I have a feeling they're both going to Raw. You know, Monday Night Raw altogether, like I said, it was a good Raw. It was a really good Raw, and the fact that Jeff Hardy, Seth Rollins, and Finn Balor ended Raw playing with the beach ball with the crowd, that was great. You know, I know that we didn't see it that night on TV. We didn't see it until later on that evening or the next morning on Twitter. However, it was still great. You know, I mean, you could feel the energy of the crowd. That WrestleMania crowd is Monday after WrestleMania is always crazy. And this one did not let us down. All right, moving on to the Smackdown after Mania. Smackdown started out with Shane coming obviously out to the ring. We all know this. Thanking Daniel Bryan for the great match on Sunday at Mania. And then he says it's time for a new GM. I don't know about all of you, but I, for one, was a little shocked when Paige came out. I was very proud of the fact that they decided to go with a woman GM. I think it's a great move as far as business-wise goes, as far as the quote-unquote agenda that the WWE is trying to push right now, which isn't an agenda at all. It's just equality, which nobody should have a problem with equality. I don't think that I've heard anybody have anything bad to say about Paige being the new GM. Of course, she comes out and she makes a match with Daniel Bryan. The crowd at first started chanting for Rusev, because we all know exactly how over Rusev has been with the crowd. However, she decided to make a match with Daniel Bryan versus AJ Styles, which was flipping amazing. I think we all marked out for that. Followed by that, we had the New Day versus the Usos for the #1 contenders match. I know that there was a lot of people complaining about why the Usos didn't automatically get a rematch. However, I understand why the WWE decided to do this, because they're trying to shake things up a little bit. They're trying to give it a little bit more flavor, not make it as predictable as what it usually is. So they brought in a rematch for #1 contendership against the Usos and the New Day. As we all know, the Usos and the New Day, they bring it every single time they're in the ring. Always great matches. Tuesday night's match wasn't as impressive for me. I've definitely seen them do better. However, these two teams have an amazing chemistry in the ring that nobody can deny. So anytime that you see them together is great. Ultimately, we all know the Usos ended up winning that, so they will go on to face the Bludgeon Brothers at the Greatest Royal Rumble for the SmackDown Tag Team titles. We had Naomi versus Natalya. I wasn't really too excited, I guess the word would be, about this match. It was kind of dull. Natalya ended up getting the pinfall. I'm ready for that feud to be over as well. So I'm really hoping that one of them gets traded to Raw, because I'm done with that feud as well. Shinsuke's interview was fantastic. If you did not like Shinsuke's backstage interview, then I want to know why. Leave it in the comments below why you didn't like that interview, because it made me bust out laughing so freaking hard. Renee Young, she asks him, questions about why he did what he did to AJ Styles at WrestleMania. We all know it was low blow at WrestleMania. And, at first he starts talking about how he must have let his emotions get over him and he doesn't know what happened. And then he winks at her. So we all know that he's not sincere, not genuine at all. So she says, Shinsuke, can I please get the real story? And then all of a sudden he says, I'm sorry, no speak English. I I lost it. Like there's no words to that. If you don't like that, then please once again leave it in the comments below. I want to discuss this. I want to know why you didn't like it, or what you would have liked to have seen instead. Everybody that I know liked that match, or liked that interview, excuse me. So moving on. There's nothing else I can say about that other than it was fantastic. So moving on, Charlotte Flair was attacked by the Iconics, making their debut from NXT, Peyton Royce and Billie Kay. I'm not a big fan of Peyton Royce and Billie Kay. I think that their wrestling is good. They're good wrestlers. I just don't like their gimmick. Like, the whole Valley Girl gimmick to me is just so overrated, and it takes away from the women's movement. That's my opinion. Everybody is entitled to their own opinion. I know a lot of people out there like the Iconic Duo, or now as they're called, the Iconics. So whether you liked their debut or you didn't, either way around, they beat the holy hell out of Charlotte, left her in the middle of the ring, which gave Carmella the ultimate opportunity to cash in the Money in the Bank. I kind of figured that this was going to be happening on Tuesday just because with Asuka losing to Charlotte on Sunday at Mania, it really spun my suspicions towards a Rousey Flair battle, or like a feud going on in the future. So I honestly think that Charlotte is getting traded to Monday Night Raw to start a feud with Ronda Rousey. If you think about it, that's really the only two things that those two characters can do. I know at one point in time the WWE wanted to make Asuka that person, and they wanted Rousey to face Asuka. I love Asuka, but ultimately I do think that it is a better matching with Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey. With that, I believe that Asuka is going to get traded to Smackdown, and I think she's going to take Carmella's title. Yesterday, I believe it was on Twitter, those two had exchanges that basically involved Carmella accusing Asuka of stealing her catchphrase, and they're going back and forth, and we all know how the Twitter battles go with wrestlers. It usually ultimately ends up in a feud at some point in time, and I would love to see Asuka as the SmackDown Women's Champion. Basically anybody but Carmella. I am not a huge Carmella fan. I'm sorry to all of you Mella fans out there, but she's just not my cup of tea. I can't handle the constant screaming in the middle of the ring. Otherwise, she's good. I just can't handle her constant screaming. We saw Bobby Roode versus Randy Orton versus Rusev in a number one contenders match for the United States Championship on who would face Jinder Mahal at Backlash. Again, people were really confused about this. They didn't understand why Randy Orton didn't automatically get a rematch. And once again, I think it's just the WWE trying to change things up a little bit. Everybody's complaining that it's predictable. So what else are they going to do other than try to shake things up a little bit? Last match of the night was AJ Styles versus Daniel Bryan. This match was amazing. Did you really expect anything else from Daniel Bryan or AJ Styles? They're going to bring their all, and these two they're both phenomenal athletes, no pun intended towards AJ, but they're phenomenal. It was great up until Shinsuke Nakamura interfered. It sucks that he interfered. However, it makes sense because, obviously he did a huge heel turn at Mania, so he interferes, causing the disqualification. And then, of course, he goes on to attack AJ Styles, gives him a low blow, and then he hits the Kinshasa, and then another low blow, like two low blows. I don't really understand what anybody expects out of him other than to do that since he did the heel turn. I love Shinsuke Nakamura as a heel. I think that he is going to go places this way. The way he was before, I honestly didn't see what was in store with him. So we will definitely have to see what they all have in store for him after this. Moving on to 205 Live, we saw Kalisto defeat Akira Tozawa. And then we also saw Tony Nese tell Mark Andrews to kick Drew Gulak's ass. This is going to be a great feud. This is going to be a great feud. Tony Nese and Drew Gulak are two fantastic wrestlers. They're so incredibly talented, and they're both good on the mic as well, in my opinion. So I think it's going to be great seeing those two go at it. A tornado tag match for next week was confirmed with Lince Dorado and Gran Metalik facing Hideo Itami and Tozawa. Ultimately, Drew Gulak ended up defeating Mark Andrews. It was a grueling match. It was really good, but he defeated him with the Gulak Dragon Sleeper. This would have been all well and good, except for the fact that, after Drew Gulak let go, won the match, he gets up, celebrates a little bit, but then he goes back and he puts Andrews in the hold again, and he refuses to let go. Enters Tony Nese. Again, I think that this is going to be a phenomenal feud. 205 Live has really been bringing it ever since they got the new general manager in there. They just, everything's been great with that show. We found out that the Brian Kendrick is back. So I'm excited to see what happens with him. I know that he came back and he was with Gentleman Jack Gallagher when they were discussing things backstage. Those two, I think, make a great tag team. They're both individually very talented superstars, so it's going to be very interesting to see where he falls in the storyline on 205 Live. Lastly, on 205 Live, we had Drake Maverick and Cedric Alexander in the middle of the ring to celebrate Alexander's win at Mania. Mustafa Ali entered to congratulate, saying that he didn't deserve it. He earned it. I love Mustafa Ali and Cedric Alexander just because of their friendship and their natural competitiveness, but they have the greatest sense of, sportsmanship. Their sportsmanship is phenomenal. And this is one of the reasons why I'm so attracted to 205 Live, because yes, you have your heels in 205 Live, but you also have ones in there that their sportsmanship is beyond amazing, and they just give good matches. It doesn't matter if they're heel, if they're face, it doesn't matter. They're high flying, they're technical, they're hard hitting matches every single time. Of course, we had Buddy Murphy coming in from behind and delivers his finisher on Alexander, and the show ends with Drake Maverick saying there will be consequences for Buddy Murphy. So we will have to stay tuned until next week to see what those consequences are. On NXT, we had the debut of the War Raiders. They came in during the match, or at the end of the match, rather. It was Heavy Machinery versus Riddick Moss and Tino Sabatelli. I'm not a fan of Tino Sabatelli. I don't buy his gimmick. I think that they really need to change his gimmick up. I just don't. I don't buy into it. I mean, if they're trying to sell him off as an arrogant asshole, then they're doing a great job. However, I don't think that an arrogant asshole is going to get him very far in the WWE. Anyways, that match ended up in a no contest due to disqualification of the War Raiders entering into the match. Earlier that evening, we also saw Lacey Evans versus Kairi Sane, with Sane ending up winning with the Sane elbow. So we'll discuss a little bit of news next, and this will be the last subject that I want to talk to you guys about today. This past week, we heard about Alicia Fox getting into an altercation with Ronda Rousey's husband. I am still not quite sure what happened here. If anybody out there knows what happens, please feel free to leave it in the comments below and let me know so that we can discuss it. We also had Rusev. There's been so much stuff happening with Rusev this past week. I'm down to the point where I honestly think that he may be just trolling. Because first it was him and Lana had a series of negative tweets against the WWE. And then all of a sudden it gets announced that he's going to face The Undertaker in a casket match at the Greatest Royal Rumble. Fans were going nuts. You had so many people saying, oh, blah, 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 negative things about this match. I personally loved the idea of Rusev facing The Undertaker because I thought it was going to be an amazing opportunity for him. Facing The Undertaker, they only give that match to somebody that they think is deserving of the match. It is an honor to face The Undertaker. I'm not really quite sure exactly what happened as to why they switched it to The Undertaker versus Chris Jericho. I think it was because of the fans' outrage. However, there's been a lot of speculation going around that it was Rusev and Lana's tweets that did it as well. I'm not sure, but we had Lana tweeting out that she refused to allow Rusev to wrestle in a casket match because it was too dangerous. And then we have Rusev changing his Twitter profile altogether. No WWE stuff on his Twitter profile. Then he's been rumored to be in the Greatest Royal Rumble now. I don't understand exactly what's happening to him. I honestly think that we're just being trolled. Honestly, I'm hoping so anyway. Rusev is a fantastic competitor, and the WWE would be really, really ridiculously, what's the word? They would be really stupid to let Rusev go. I'm just going to leave it at that. We also had Bray Wyatt rumored to turn heel on Matt Hardy and become the new leader of Sanity. Sanity is rumored to be getting called up in the Superstar Shakeup. I am more than okay with that. If anybody out there heard my NXT predictions and my WrestleMania predictions, I want Sanity on the main roster so badly. I think that they are far past ready. All of them are far past ready. I would love to see them come up to, I'm thinking it's probably going to be Smackdown just because Raw got so many debuts already this past week on Monday. However, having Bray Wyatt as their leader, I'm not really too sure about that. I don't know. I think that they're doing good on their own and that they should just leave them. But we all know that the main roster does not like to leave NXT talent as they were. So we will wait and see how that plays out. Rey Mysterio has been also rumored to be returning during the Greatest Royal Rumble despite his injury. I know that he still has promises to be, he still has dates and stuff to keep for New Japan and a couple of other wrestling promotions. However, it was rumored going around for a while that he was going to make this one appearance at the Greatest Royal Rumble, and then he was going to come back later on this summer after he was done with all of his other appearances. I don't know whether or not I'm excited for that or not. I would rather see Rey Mysterio at 100% health than see him half healthy. I don't want to see him half-assed in the ring. If I want Rey Mysterio, then I want the full Rey Mysterio. That may just be me being a little bit greedy, however. Also in the news, we had Kenny Omega responding to Roman's tweet. Roman put out a tweet saying anyone, anytime, anywhere, pretty much. And Kenny Omega responded with, really? Yes, please. That's all I have to say is yes, please. When I saw this tweet, my heart did a little flutter. Like, I'm not even going to lie. I want this so incredibly badly. I want Kenny Omega in the WWE. That's me being a little bit selfish. I watch the WWE mainly. Kenny is great in ROH. He's great in New Japan, but I want him on that main roster. So, like I said, I fangirled a little bit with that tweet. Macaulay Culkin. I know what you're thinking. What does Macaulay Culkin have to do with the WWE? But Macaulay Culkin challenged Rusev to a Lawrence of Arabia basket match on Twitter. I am honestly thinking that Macaulay Culkin has lost his damn mind. Way beyond his damn mind. I mean, at first he was challenging Rusev to a celebrity match at WrestleMania. As we all know, that didn't happen. And now he's challenging him to a Lawrence of Arabia basket match? Okay, Macaulay Culkin. Whatever. And lastly, in the news, this one just broke on Sunday. However, John Cena and Nikki Bella have broken up officially. I know that there's a lot of people out there that have different feelings about this. I personally think that breakups are hard enough without being in the public eye and having fans get involved in this. I think that we all just need to give them the privacy like they asked for. If Nikki or John are in the ring anytime soon, I don't think that they should be hearing chants about their breakup. That's just horrible. Be genuine, be good people, and just understand that these individuals, they're not just superstars, they're human beings. And they were in a real life relationship, so it's gonna hurt. All right, guys, that wraps up this week for Renegade Wrestling Review. I want to thank all of you for sticking around with me. I know it was a lot of material to cover coming off of Mania Week and all of the crazy news in the WWE that happened this past week. I want to hear from you guys. Most importantly, leave any questions, comments, anything that you want to see me do in the comments section down below, or you can also find me over on Twitter at GinaDaily02. And you can also now find me on WrestlingWithWrestling.com, as I will be doing the Smackdown live reviews for those guys now. I want to send a huge thank you out to Andre and all of the guys and gals over at WrestlingWithWrestling.com for this opportunity, and I really look forward to working with you all. As for everybody else, I will talk to you later. See ya. Yeah.